Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Media Pulse. So here we are at the first weekend of December.
And the countdown to the new year has already begun.
Yes.
And as we have been saying, in Thai politics is never void of surprises, right?
Yeah, exactly. There was a surprise development early this week, in fact, that has touched of a new speculation in the political circle.
Surprises, speculations that are the norms of the Thai politics, right?
Exactly. So we're talking about Kun Boonsong Teriyapirom. So after spending 7 years in prison, the former Commerce Minister, Boonsong Teriyapirom, was granted a parole.
That's right.
Yes.
He was one of the key figures in the controversial rise pledging scheme introduced by the Yingluck government many years back. And he was sentenced to 48 years in jail, quite a long prison term, on corruption charges, but had his sentence continuously commuted until he was entitled to a parole.
Now, his release has triggered speculation that it could pave the way for former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra to end her self-exile and return home. Now, Yingluck herself was also found guilty of corruption and negligence of duty in connection with the rice scheme.
She fled the country in 2017.
Yeah.
Just shortly before the court
on the same
down.
day, actually.
Yeah. She fled the country and later on the court handed down the verdict.
Yep.
And she has been in self-exile since then.
Yeah, correct.
And of course, she has been longing to come back. So Kun Boonsong's release on parole has certainly touched off a speculation that a way is being paved for her to finally come home.
Yeah, so it's only December, but remember, Kun Thaksin said he was going to bring his sister home for Songkran. Now, Songkran is 4 months away, but it seems like there are speculations about this.
Okay.
So the media have been full of speculation that Boonsong's release paves the way for the possible return of Yingluck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's being seen by the Thai media as being part of the political deal that currently keeps the Thai party in power. The reported deal was struck in the aftermath of last year's general elections, right? The deal was supposed to allow former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra to end his self-exile and return home to help her Thai party form a coalition government.
Yeah, the aim of the deal supposedly was to block the People's Party, then known as the Move Forward Party, from gaining power. Behind the deal was the so-called ruling elites who were scared of the Move Forward Party's anti-establishment agenda.
Okay. There has always been a question as to who these ruling elites are. There has never been a clear answer, but everybody seems to know who these people are. So, in summary, the Thai media seem to subscribe to the theory that the deal that has been much reported opened the door for Thaksin to come home, Thai party to be the core of the coalition, the parole for Boonsong, and capping with the potential returns of Kun Yingluck Shinawatra, the former Prime Minister.
Yeah, and of course, under the deal, Thai will continue to serve as the political bulwark against anti-establishment forces. If we look at this newspaper headline, of course, people are wondering what the Prime Minister would think of this. And obviously, she denies that the suspended jail term for Boonsong paves the way for Yingluck to return to Thailand.
The Prime Minister insisted that Kun Boonsong was released simply because he met all the requirements of the Corrections Department to qualify for parole. That's her explanation. No special treatment for Boonsong. That was what she was trying to suggest.
Yeah, but someone in the family, we're talking about the former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, he actually sort of floated this idea around of Yingluck's possible return in an interview with Nikkei Asia. He said he expected to see his sister Yingluck back in Thailand to celebrate the Songkran Water Festival next year.
Okay, that's only months away, right? Okay, so a little bit of background. As Commerce Minister, Kun Boonsong played a key role in the rice pledging scheme where the Thai media often portray him as a scapegoat or the scapegoat. Yingluck had allegedly misled him into believing that she would stand by him throughout the trial in the case. But eventually, she chose to flee the country, leaving Boonsong behind to face the music alone.
Yeah, I remember that day she was supposed to turn up to court. She left home but didn't arrive at the court.
Yeah. And there were widespread media reports about that particular moment on that day, that Boonsong was about to arrive at the court for the verdict, right?
Yes.
And then he was on the phone with someone close to Yingluck, making sure that the Prime Minister, then Kun Yingluck, was on her way to the court as well. And someone at the other end of the line said, yeah, she was on her way. But no, she was on her way out of the country, not on her way to the court.
So on the way to somewhere they didn't mention. So Boonsong, who is 64, walked out of jail on Monday with his release scheduled for April 2028. It means that he will be on probation for 3 years and 5 months. Until then, he will be wearing the electronic tag on his leg.
A wealthy businessman and a political veteran, Boonsong will spend his parole time staying with his son, Yingluck Teriyapirom, an MP of Palang Pracharat Party in the northern province of Chiang Mai, which is the family's political stronghold. And you can be sure that from this point on, all eyes will be on former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra. Political analysts believe that it's Thaksin's mission to make sure that his sister will come home. The sooner the better.
But how the country's first woman prime minister will return is still uncertain. And she is still considered a fugitive with a 5-year jail term awaiting.
But if her brother Thaksin, also a convicted fugitive when he was in self-exile, right? If Thaksin managed to return home and become a free man without spending a single day behind bars, then it's just anybody's guess as to how Yingluck might navigate her return home.
So let's wait and see. 4 months away, we'll see if what Thaksin's words will come true, because he expects his sister to come home. So we've sort of touched briefly on the so-called political elite, the unseen force. So this week somebody actually said something about this as well.
That means that from now on you may need to familiarize yourself with a new political term, right?
Yeah.
License or licenses to rule.
Right.
And these are in connection with what you just mentioned, the role of the ruling elites, right?
Yeah, it now has added to a new spin to the debate on the current state of Thai political affairs, obviously. So what are these licenses we're talking about, really?
No, the term was first floated by Kun Thepchai, a former government spokesman and a veteran politician, during a recent TV interview and later in his Facebook post.
Yes. So he emphasized, basically said that Pheu Thai party needs to have the license to rule in order to stay in power.
No, he did not immediately explain what he meant by the license to rule, but political analysts and the media interpreted it as a reference to the mandate outside the normal democratic norm the party received to form the coalition government.
But who gave the Pheu Thai party the mandate? That's still a question. Jakapop mentioned that this force called the traditional ruling clique.
Again, this certainly needs to be explained. And this is what Kun Jakapop said during the interview and later in his Facebook post.
Yeah.
He said, if Pheu Thai party only cares about the people while ignoring the traditional ruling clique, which doesn't care much about the people anyway, it should brace itself for a political extinction.
So then he added, in politics, survival is the first rule. If you die, there's nothing you can do.
No, and in order to survive politically, Jakapop said, Pheu Thai party badly needs to hold on to the license to rule in order to be able to stay in power and serve the people.
I guess his statement reflects the view that in Thai politics, there are always unseen forces influencing political decisions from behind the scenes.
Kun Chakaprop is a former television news commentator, and he served as the spokesman of the Thaksin government, and later a cabinet member in the Samak government.
Right.
He fled the country following the military coup d'etat in 2014, and he ended his self-exile early this year to return to Thailand.
Right. So though now he currently holds no formal positions in Pheu Thai, he is still known to be loyal to the Shinawatra family.
And of course, Kun Chakaprop's comments have sparked a lot of attention from the Thai media. But interestingly, it was Piyabut Sangkanokun, an outspoken academic and a political reformist, who has brought what Kun Chakaprop said to another level.
Exactly.
And in doing so, he has also provided a rather interesting anatomy of the current Thai politics.
It is quite interesting. So Piyabut is a founder and currently Secretary General of the Progressive Movement, a political group that works in parallel with the People's Party. And he is also known as an advocate of a reform of the monarchy.
Kun Chakaprop, as we mentioned earlier, talked about the license to rule, right? But the French-educated activist Kun Piyabut said in a lengthy article post on his Facebook that in Thailand you need to have 2 licenses, not just one, to be able to rule.
So he explained the first license obviously is the mandate politicians or political parties need from the people through the ballot box. So under normal circumstances, once you win an election, you are set to ascend to power by forming a government. But in Thailand, he said, there's an extraordinary time that we're living in. In Piyabut's view, one license to rule is not enough. You need to have a second one as well.
So what is the other license to rule? No, in his opinion piece, Piyabut alluded to what he called the ruling elites. Same thing that Kun Chakaprop referred to, right?
Yeah.
The ruling elites who, he said, have the prerogative to decide who gets the second license to rule.
Right, so both from different sides, but seems to be on common ground
Yes, that's
with
right.
regard to this issue.
That's right. Even though Piyabut did not spell out who these people are, the so-called ruling elites, it is understood that he was referring to the Thai version of deep state.
Right, borrowing
Deep
from Donald
state,
Trump.
right? The term which has been widely used in the US, right?
Yeah.
To refer to influential networks or entrenched powers that operate behind the scenes to exert significant influence on governance and decision making. So we are hearing for the first time that we have so-called deep state in Thailand now.
Interesting, isn't it? I can picture Donald Trump's face in my head. So on this, Piyabut seems to be in sync with Chakaprop, although they're from different political parties and ideology. So what Piyabut said was interpreted as meaning that the current ruling coalition of Prime Minister Pathongtham Shinawatra has in possession 2 licenses to rule. Right? For now.
For now.
For now.
It's important to stress the words for now.
Yeah. So when he said for now, Piyabut was suggesting that the license, the second license, can be taken away at any time at the whims of the powers that be.
Okay. So if Kun Piyabut's theory about the second license to rule is correct, it could also mean that the license has been valid since as early as when former Prime Minister Thaksin was allowed to return from his self-exile in August last year to help orchestrate the formation of the coalition government by his daughter Patongtham's Pheu Thai party.
That's true. And if we're talking about license, usually it expires at a certain time. Like the driving license, I think it's 10 years or 5 years, I'm not sure.
It depends.
Depends, right? So, this license, we don't have an exact expiration.
No, it depends on the whims of the powers that
That's
be.
why he said for now. Yeah. So this two-license system has greatly distorted the Thai political system. This is according to Piyabut. And he says political parties now make the first license secondary to the second license, meaning that the license issued by the so-called ruling elites takes precedence over the mandate from the people.
The two licenses phenomenon, according to Kun Piyabut, has greatly reshaped the Thai political landscape, splitting political parties into two camps at the moment. On one hand, Piyabut said there is what he called the new political force, which abides by the democratic rule by seeking the mandate to rule through the ballot box.
Right.
The so-called new political force is pursuing political reforms aimed at putting an end to the role of the deep state.
And then on the other hand, he said, there is what he described as the old political force. Now, this force is ready to prostrate before the ruling elites in order to gain favor and safeguard the second license to rule it already possesses. So for this group of politicians, he said, winning an election is merely a formality. Obtaining the second license is more important.
Yeah. So in Kun Piyabut's opinion, the need to make sure that you continue to possess a second license is more important than to get the people's mandate to rule. Under the current political circumstances.
Yeah.
Again, Kun Piyabut did not specify which two political parties or factions he was referring to. The one that subscribed to the democratic rules, the norms, and the other one which only cares about the second license to rule.
Yeah, he didn't exactly specify who, but he said the people can easily tell who they are by looking at their behavior and their political stance. He said this is referring to the factions, but he didn't really mention which two factions.
Maybe
Exactly.
Kun Piyabut may not have to be that specific, because if you are real Thai political watchers, you can easily tell which party subscribe to which theory or which route of road that would lead to power.
How do you extend that license? We're not sure. It's not like the driver's license where you pay to extend your driver's license. And make sure you pay all your tickets. Anyway, we've talked about Boonsong, we've talked about Thaksin, we've talked about Yingluck Shinawatra. We can't not mention the Prime Minister.
Of course not, because she still has been making a lot of headlines.
Exactly.
And in some cases for not a very good reason.
No, this week hasn't been too good for her either. She has been criticized for her comments about the floods in the south, followed by the hostility on social media. So let's start with the PM's comment on the floods in the south. She said this while on the trip to the north, amid calls for more actions on relief efforts for the floods affected area. So here's a quote. In an interview, the PM said, "They say that I neglect the people in the south. My husband is from the south. My husband's family is from the south. If I neglect people of the south, if I don't love them, how can I marry my husband who is from the south?"
What a reaction to reporters pressing questions about her not being in the south.
Yeah,
By
obviously.
thousands of people
Corinne.
were suffering from flood, right?
Obviously, the comments sparked immediate responses, both online and off.
I think she wasn't, to be fair to her, she was in Chiang Mai for a very important mission to preside over her special cabinet meeting in the northern province.
Yeah, so Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai.
Chiang Rai.
Yeah.
But it's not the cabinet meeting itself that was the issue. It was because she was also seen with her family,
Yeah.
including her husband and two children.
Yeah.
I've been shopping, visiting Chiang Mai Zoo, visiting a flower festival. Why there were calls for the government to take care of thousands of people who were still reeling from the effects of the flooding in the south.
Okay, so there were comments from many political figures. One was a former PM from Nakhon Si Thammarat. So he's from the south. We're talking about Thepchai. He posted on his social media that the PM's logic is distorted. Having a husband from the south and flood relief in the south are different matters. This is what Thepchai said. And there were other harsh comments as well. So other harsh comments include this one from radio FM 96.5, a presenter who was a prominent media figure as well as a former senator, Dr. Somkiat Ornwimon. He said that if we take the PM's logic, that means for the PM to care about the people in all parts of Thailand, she will need to have one husband from each part of the country. This is quite harsh.
Very harsh, and this particular sarcastic comment from Dr. Somkiat was echoed by other media influencers, internet, online media influencers. And of course, these comments and others were very brutal, we have to say.
Yes, they were not reserved about it. But it doesn't end there, because the PM actually responded to those comments on her social media story, and she quoted some internet gurus, I think. I'm not sure who, but there were two posts, and one post reads, "Your negativity is a reflection of your own reality."
Wow.
Another story says, "Insecure people put others down to raise themselves up."
And you can be sure that her subsequent comments also drew an avalanche of criticisms from her critics.
Exactly. But in a way, I think this highlights the fact that Thai people and the media are very interested in the ongoings of our politicians. So it is a democratically active society we have here. I don't know.
we can say that. And in a subsequent interview, the Prime Minister, Kun Paetongtarn, begged the Thai media to stop dramatizing what she said about being married to a southerner. And she stressed that the point should be more about how the government has been doing to help alleviate the plight of the people suffering from the floods in the south, not what she said about her family and her husband.
Yeah, that's true. So, you can't stop people from reacting and saying what they want to say. Free speech. Hurrah. Anyway, to cap this program today, we would like to bring your attention to this report about a real estate scandal which allegedly involves someone important in politics and his sweetheart with initial Chaw Chang.
Chaw Chang.
Yeah, we have this headline, and this is from Thai PBS website. It says, "It is now the turn for the political big name sweetheart. The revenge continues," says. So again, people in the Thai media like to drop initials, isn't it? So long story short, there's a resort in Saraburi that is under investigation for wrongful use of parts of its land. Now, the resort was allegedly involved in payments of 10 million baht to officials to allow that to happen. Now, the question is, obviously, who got the money?
Wow.
Right?
Big question.
There are reports that suggest that this money was allegedly traced to the so-called sweetheart of a political big name. Matichon actually mentioned, and a lot of other news media as well actually mentioned that it was not the Deputy Prime Minister, a former Deputy Prime Minister.
And it was also linked to well-known TV personalities.
Yeah, his sweetheart.
A sweetheart.
To be fair, the resort issued a statement that it has no involvement with the sweetheart of the politician. So the intrigue continues, I guess. Some are viewing this as a revenge between certain political rivals.
Okay.
I guess it can be seen that way. It's always like that.
As we mentioned earlier in the program, that Thai politics is never void of speculation, surprises, and now we have to add that it's also not void of scandals.
Dramas and gossips. Is what this show is all about. No, we're talking serious politics. Of course not. Well, thank you for following us and joining us on the show this week. We'll see you again next Saturday. So have a good one. Bye.
Bye.